Hi, welcome to this video on Š-ཌÉŠ, the sixth in the series. We can just see over here, Angel Theory, video 25, and the others, which will give a more, they give different views of the same system, really. Okay, so this is called the RES calculator, and we'll see this in action soon. But first, we're going to look for the inputs. You see this 6.317, that's 6 billion. That's made up of 4 billion as an initial cash flow, plus 2.3 billion that we see down here, made in the year 2024. And we're going from 2024 to 2080. So trade, there's no trade, it's only nominal figures. Quite a bit of real estate from Angel City 1, but if we take that out of the equation, we have to change the final figures. We deduct 10%. So let's just work on the principle that there is no real estate, and we have to take 10% off at the end. The real estate that there is has now been compiled into a city which is sold suburb by suburb for $1 billion per year for a few years. And that really, this figure here is where all of the money comes from. As long as we take away that real estate at the end, all we have to focus on is can we get these cities sold? And they will have been sold many years before 2024 if this system comes into fruition. So it's not really a we get to 2024 and then we're hoping we will know about these cities long in advance, and they'll be pictured in perfect 3D as well. Okay, there is one other factor, and this is here, and we can see at the moment LCR, Law of Conservation of Revenue, there's nothing in it. This is the only year where there's nothing in it. Okay, so we get our revenue, which is our income, and our initial 4 billion in cash flow. And the first year, we are just doing this once. See there, spend by the 1st of January 2025. So this happens in a year. We start with the 6.3. Now this is E, recycle-Éfficiency, and this is explained in the written material. Let me just quickly take you to it. On the book, if we're starting at the beginning, we just go down a few sections to here, page 17, and this explains the recycle. And this is the figures that we're actually going through now. We see that here in the next tab. This is a record of every year. So you see this 5.6. That's the first, and then we get that, well, we can see it here, and that is the initial revenue. Every company spends via what we call the Siena equilibrium, and in such a way that by the end of all the spending after that year, 90% of the spending was spent with another company or another person from another company. Yeah, that's how it happens. 90% is company to company, 10% is company to the rest of the world. Most of that is on salaries. We see that E is 90%. That means leakage is 10%. That means 10% is going to really salaries and the acquisition of land, probably. Stuff like that. Okay, so at the end of the year, of course, if we started with 6.3 and 90% was spent with other companies in the same network, those other companies in the same network will have 5.6 in their collective banks, or more likely a central bank. So, of course, at the end of the year, that money's still in the bank, that 5.5. So we take that down, take it down to here, and you can see back just up here top left where I pointed out the LCR was 0 in 2024. 2025 it's going to be 5.6 billion, and that's where most of the money comes from, this spinning of the savings. Okay, note we've got 5.6 as cash flow, and there's a CFV, which is a system I created after listening to David A. Moss's concise macroeconomics book. Just saying that pretty much whatever the cash flow is, it's going to create 50% of that in GDP. And we can look here and see the increase to the money supply is 90%. That's minus 10%, because 10% was lost here. Okay, 10%'s lost there. That's cost 90. That only really works in a one spin system. Let's go on to 2025. And the first thing we do is follow this LCR, follow the savings. Goes down here, and we plug it in here. Okay. Now we're going to look at this section again. We can see the nominal trade, the null trade, has gone up by one of those two. It's either 105%. Yeah, I'm sure it's at 105%. Yeah, but these don't count because they're so small. They're just there. Real estate, again, we can throw that away. We have to lose 10% of the final. Aid, I'm confident in the second year we'll be able to get this amount of aid. I am preparing a chapter for the recent Nobel winners about the system of aid that is based on this REST system, i.e. aid does the same thing as we see here, and we will see that it can turn into, instead of someone spending $1 billion, they spend $1 billion, 5-10 years later they're making $2 or $3 billion each year to help. So you know, that's completely opposite to how aid usually works. So yeah, confident of the aid. And what have we got? So we've got our city again, city suburb. We've got our estate agents, real estate that we can take out. We've got the aid, which is fair enough. We've got the LCR of 5.6 billion, and that equals 8.5 billion. We then carry the grand total up to revenue and savings, so as we can start the REST calculator all again. Don't worry about this blue stuff. This is just me doing some workings. One sec. Okay, so this year, 2025, we spin twice. So, starting with 8.5 times 91% this time, 9% leakage, means there's 7.7 left in the network's bank, and after the 11th of July, that money falls down to here and it is spent again. So the money is spent twice in a year, but as only 9% and then 9% was lost, and we have the various other inputs, this is more than enough to start a snowball. Okay, so as we did before, we're going down this column. Just one note, there's an argument that I should be doing this row, not this row, and I'll probably say, yeah, that's correct, but I'm actually showing lower figures, so if I'm wrong on this, the difference would be that it makes more. and we don't need to worry about that. Okay, so this year, you see we've got 14 billion because that initial cash flow has been spent twice. Capital plus labor equals products. They're sold, etc., etc. So yeah, 2 years creates 14, and that creates 7 billion in GDP. And it allows us, you see now the law of savings, law of conservation of revenue has increased to 7. Again, this goes down here, lands in here, and this is added a part of this. We can see 8 has increased, everything else stays the same. And as per before, the grand total flies up to the revenue and savings position, and this time we're doing 3 spins. 10 billion, 92% of which equals 9.7 billion. That is still in the network's central banks, and that happens in the first 132 days. The second spin, starting on the 13th of May, is for the 9.7, and 92% of that is 8.9 left in the network central banks. And preferably it's all in cash, dollars. That happens by the end of on September 11th, and on September the 12th is the third spin. Again, 92% saved, so there's 8.2 in the network's central bank. That all creates now 26 billion, and if we just go back to the this spreadsheet, we can see that 26 billion there. So all of these end up recording the year's cash flow, not GDP, the year's cash flow. And again, the LCR is here. The savings, again, fall down to here. This all forms part of the 12 billion grand total, which gets put into the rest calculator, first slot, this time 4 years. So 12.4. In fact, first is spent by that time, then this is spent by 15th of July, then this is spent by 11th of October. You get it now, yeah? Okay. Now we're at 40 billion. Maybe around, maybe around 20 billion in GDP. We continue to 5 spins, and we're going to go another down. We're going to go to 2029, and we're going to go to 2030, where we've got to 7 spins. And at this point, we have our first problem. I can see spinning to 95%. I can see spinning all the way up to where we're going to go, which is 99.5. But if anyone was going to try and find a magnitude problem, you're not going to find it here. But we can't spin as much with a higher E, with a lower E. So this is showing a picture, and that picture is of a very high E, which is 99.5% of company spending is company to company within the network. Easier to actually think of it as just a normal big company spending within its own departments all the time. There you can think of 99% of spending in a company is within its departments, because every department is different. You've got a graphic designer, you've got a lawyer, you've got this, you've got that, they all internally spend as they would, and this is sort of looking like an E of around 90, high 90%. So, but you know, we're on number 3 of 87 quintillion histories. There you go. 80, that's how many simulations we're going to do if we get a supercomputer. Where was I? Yeah, I was here. Yeah. So yeah, this is only history 3. You know, I'm looking for someone to do history 4 and then history 5, and then I want to program it so as history can be made very, very quickly. At the moment, it takes a long time because we have to make a whole new rest calculator for each spin. Probably there's a way in math to do it. I don't have that ability. We're lucky enough I did the math that did the dates. Sorry. Right, so yeah, here we're at 7 spins. We've had E of 96, and we've had a little chat about E, you know, being too high. Not at the moment, but maybe later years. Anyway, now we're at 71 billion. Cash flow, GDP 35. And let's have a little cruise over to the left-hand side. What we've got here is global growth, but not inflation. And we've got Malawi growth, but not inflation. Global is... These are set. Sorry, I'm just going to... Where are we? Row 350. These are set here. If you want to change the growth, just change it there. Change it over the whole thing. There we go. 350 was it? Yeah, here we go. Okay, so at the moment, Malawi's share of global GDP is 0.0321. You know, that's very small. They started at the lowest. Well, no, actually, they started at the lowest in terms of per capita GDP. And the idea here is that we bring it to 1% of GDP by the year 2020. This can be done in the way I'm showing you now, although one could say we shouldn't have an E over 97.5%, fair enough. But also, if we look at history 2, anyway, I can't. It's not local. If we look at history 2, it's a totally different thing with everything moving around a lot because we're battling five recessions. I think it is. No, sorry, it's 3 big recessions. Anyway, this is this scenario, right? So let's just carry on. So 8 spins. 9 spins, and now we're at GDP 50 billion. 10 spins, 2034. 11 spins. Okay, now we're starting to get quite a high figure. Global GDP is now 131 billion. And what are we doing here? Okay, so we're starting with a higher revenue of 21 billion, which we've made by this process. We've now gone up to 99%. E, as I said, maybe we shouldn't have anything over 97, but that 99E allows us to spin a lot of times. The more spins, the more times that cash flow is spent. So creating the cash flow here, which the CFB suggests might be 131 billion. Okay, where are we now on the left? We're at 0.1%. Okay, we're now going to go to 2048, which I believe it is Angel City 4. Yeah, here we go. Okay, Angel City 4. See, we now have 3 city suburb projects. One started in 2024, one started in 2032, another one started in 2048. Therefore, we have 4 cities, because we have here the Angel City 1, and then we have the network cities 2024, 2032, 2048. It will all have their own exciting names at some point, probably named after the companies or the funds or whoever is paying for them. And really, I think this is going to be a case of this is such a good deal, the economics is so good that we're going to really be able to pick and choose who these cities are, who's financing it. You know, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, Larry Page, Sergey Brin. Those are our six names who we would like these cities to go to. But, you know, could end up being Norwegian Wealth Fund or Yale University. Yeah, there's an awful lot of options. It's not like it's a lot of money relative to what they already have. Right, okay, I'm starting to ramble now. In 2048, Angel City 4, we have 25 spins. So we start with 37. We spend 99.5% of that within the company network within 16 days. Now imagine you're that company. Imagine this is a company and it's gone from making windows, for say, let's call it the window factory, and it's gone from making windows, and it took them a year to make the first batch, and each year it gets faster and faster, which is a good way to ease anybody into such a process. And remembering with 2048 here, this is a long way away to ease into the higher and the higher E. But in terms of in terms of a company, the company will probably start with the capacity to be able to make 5 times as much as they are currently making. Each company will have space in their where their offices are for more offices, so as they can expand, or more factories. It will all be planned well in advance, exactly who's spending what at this time, who's spending what well in advance, and as we've heard, 87 quintillion different versions of the same thing, perfecting it. So there we go. Right, all this spinning, 867 billion, GDP maybe 433 billion, and we're at 0.25% of global GDP. Now we're going to go all the way down. $20.55. We hit 32 here. After we hit 32, we don't go any higher than 32. 32 spins, that is. And note here, whereas before we were showing we had a loss of 10%, now we are increasing the money supply by 2,949%. That's what RES has done. It's increased the money, it's moved it faster, so as it's 2,949%. That's how much more money there is in the system. Okay, I'm really just going to fly down to the bottom now. Here we go. The final year, 2080, all that spinning created a cash flow of 8.2, GDP of potentially 4.1. Sorry, that's 8.2 trillion, and that's 4.1 trillion. Yeah. And you see the increase to money supply is the same because we've got the same 32 spins. Okay, we've got a quote here from Kate Raworth. Actually, it's from Donella Meadows. Care of Kate Raworth. Growth is one of the stupidest purposes ever invented by any culture. We've got to have enough. Now, I'm working on this quite a bit now. The last chapter in the book is called "We Have to Have Enough." We've got to have enough. It's a quote from Steve Keen, care of Kate Raworth again, trying to analyze capitalism while leaving out banks, debt, and money is trying to analyze birds while they're ignoring they have wings. Good luck. Or maybe that good luck should have a little bit more sarcasm on it. Here we've got some different outcomes for global GDP depending on the growth of per year and the growth of Malawi. From changing from to 8 to 5% of global GDP if the world didn't increase and Malawi increased by 5%, down to 0.63 if the world increases at 107.5 and Malawi increases at 110. Okay. This section here is giving us some stats. 1 second. Okay, it's giving us some stats of the percentage of GDP, starting at 0.003 up to 1.073. If we use 6.25% of this, and this is what the 64 reasons why is about, it's 64 special projects. If we used 6.25% of this for building homes, then we eventually make 10 million homes. Okay, let's see how we got here. Actually, first of all, we're going to have a little look at the book, and we're going to just go and find, can we find that here? No, it's the one before then. Here we see that the 5-star social housing has 32 allocations. What's an allocation? Let's just try and find that text. I think it's at the bottom down here. No. Here we go. The math here is to take the cash flow generated in history free from 2024 to 2080. Then half is allocated to other, and then I divide the balance by 256, making 256 allocations of 43.43 billion US dollars. I then assign them to the 64 projects. And we can see 32 allocations being 6.25% comes to 1.5 trillion spent on social housing. Let's have a quick look at the whole of what's going on. Where's it gone? Here we go. Page 122, we see all the 64 projects, and we see I've allocated and we see at the very end we come back to a new chapter, chapter 27. There has to be enough. So I'm acknowledging that we have to do this in a. It has to be the laws of the network. It has to be ecologically carbon. Everything has to be net zero or better. But resource use is another factor, and that's what I'm going to be making this chapter about. There has to be enough. Is how can we build the houses in a way that doesn't hurt the earth. And other initiatives, second-hand goods, more use of, building things that don't break after two, stuff like that. And let's get back to the spreadsheet. Okay, so let's have a look at these figures that gives us those 10 million houses. We have to go all the way over to the right, all the way to the top, back a little, down. Okay, so what I'm saying is 150, this isn't for land, and this isn't for infrastructure. This is for building the house, the bricks and the mortar and the labor. So saying $150,000 will be spent on building a house. Now, because of PPP in Malawi, $150,000 is more like $500,000, and that'll all work itself out. We're just saying this is $150,000 is a fair amount to pay for the build of a house. Obviously the land is an extra, but that's sort of something that gets worked out in another way. Anyway, point is 150,000 per house for the build cost. Now we then take the cash flow of that year, and we divide that cash flow by that 6.25%, and that creates $355,000. We divide that by the property cost, and we get the homes built. But because of the CFV, I'm taking 50% off and making it 1.185 houses. Now, I could well be wrong on this, but the result would be, instead of building 10 million houses, we would have built 20 million. And there's no negative, there's no wrong. If we make more than we thought we made, there's nothing wrong in that. Okay, so yeah, hopefully 20 million, but the way I'm presenting it here looks more like 10 million to me. There's a lot that's involved in this CFV adjustment. Okay, so we've got growth here, and this is something that's going to come back, is the multiplier. This is working out how much we should have to multiply our dollars by to make it worth the same 1 year as it was the next, to combat the growth, essentially. Going down, we see this again, because there's more money, we're building more houses, and what I'm doing now in this green is adding up the total amount of houses built. You can see it does it again, and you can see again we've got this figure here that is telling us how much we would need to increase our money by today. Today's value, yeah, you times the figure, whatever figure you have, by that 1.07, and you're going to have the cost of it, of what it would cost today. So I'm really struggling to make that point. We'll come back to it further down, and I hope I can. Right, we're just going to go all the way down now because we've, there's nothing new. Just repeat, repeat, repeat. Okay, now we get to the bottom, and you can see now the property cost has risen from 150,000 to 597. That's pretty much an increase of 400%, I believe. Increase of 4, yeah. Yeah, starts at 150, ends just below 600, yeah, increase by 4. And we can see this increase is actually 3.98. So the cost of the house build in 2080, if you times it by 3.98, you'll get to the cost of that same build in 2080. Okay, there you go, I've explained it properly. Over to the right, we see we're still reducing by 50%, and we see that year built 428. So that's a, you do that even if one's a few years out. By the time you get to this level of productivity, you can, make a few years back. You can make, as many houses again. Okay, anyway, 10 billion houses. And we're going to look at this now. This is the multiplication to adjust a 2080 price to a 2024 price. Now, I'm going to go all the way over to the left. So all this blank spaces is so as I can do each individual special project and give it its own values. We're going down a little bit further. Okay, here we are. So I'm just going to have a sip of water. Okay, so we're going to look at this bit here first, because this is that 0.25 that you saw. And I think I've copied this section just up here so it's easier to get to. And we can see that 0.25, we follow the green. And here we go. Actually, here we go here. Okay. So, let's talk about this column here. We start with the cash flow. Cash flow comes from this spreadsheet, which, if you remember, is on page 20. It's the end of the short Š-věÉŠ presentation. Okay, so on the spreadsheet we can see all of this. We've added it up and it adds up to 140. Yeah, 140. That 140. Uh-oh. This is interesting. Okay. So I've used the wrong figures here. Let's see what difference it makes. Yeah, look, I'm doing this 103, which is this. So I'm leaving out the beginning. Okay, well, more money is always good. Maybe it'll help balance out the problem I've got at the moment is this figure here, 17, is different to this figure here, 24. No, hang on. Yeah. Okay, so let's change this one. Okay, that actually does bring it closer to 24. Okay. That's cool. Yeah, I could have cheated here and changed this number to suit my own experiments, but I didn't. I picked the number that I thought was the best number. And I was looking to match this 24 and this 24 with this 24, and as you saw just a minute ago, that wasn't that. That's right. Okay, so what are we looking at here? Total cash flow. Actually, 1 second. Total cash flow in today's money. No, total cash flow, and then we do the calculation for in today's money. But I'm just going to move over to here to the one that I thought was correct. Well, the more correct. And note that on this multiplier, I have increased it because I know it's a thought experiment, and I could be wrong. Now, if that's a figure, everything has to be multiplied by 0.2 to get a quarter. Therefore, you've got the same amount of money, value of money. You can buy the same amount of bricks with a quarter than you can with one. But this is working this out at the end and the beginning. At the beginning, where we've got cash flow, that is already the 2024 price, so that the beginning should have no deductions for converting to today's price at 2080. So what I did, and this took a good walk and a good think, I added 35%, 135%. Actually, it's 35%. It's just when you do the calculations, you've got to put the 135. It gets a bit confusing. Okay, so this figure here now, then, this 0.33 is the multiplication to adjust a 2080 price to 2024 times 35%, which brings it up to 0.33. At which point, because we're talking cash flow, we have to apply the CFV, bringing it down to the David A. Moss CFV, bring that down to 24,791 in today's money. And it's been a huge effort to get it in today's money. As you saw, I just had a mistake for this figure here, so there could be other mistakes. But now I've got 3 different things telling me the same thing, and in science that's normally enough. If it's certainly enough if one was a policeman and looking to convict someone for something. If there were 3 different things that were completely different from each other that all added up to the same, and it's likely that it's going to be right. Okay, so what are the 3 things? We've seen this one here, 23 trillion. This one here is made from 150,000 per home times the amount of homes equals 1.5 trillion in today's money. We times that by 16 because we're only allocating 6.25% to the homes. Thus, total cash flow of the network should be 24.2. this was always going to be less accurate than this, but the fact that they're very similar, 23 and 24, is very encouraging. And lastly, if we just go to the World Bank, and I think this year, or it might be last year, or it might even be 2018. Anyway, at some point, GDP was at 85 trillion. Now, if we imagine, because Malawi starts with 0 and ends with 1%, so if you take it along the line or the curve, about 0.5% of GDP it would be making on average. So if we take that 0.5% of GDP and we okay, yeah. We take the World Bank's figures. We're averaging spending 0.5 a year, and that's how much that is in 1 year, times 56 for 2024 to 2080, and we have 24 trillion again. And these figures are, no one can argue with this. This is obviously there'd be a curve and things are going up and down, but Anyway, it's the fact that this figure here, and this figure here, that wasn't where it was now at the beginning of this spreadsheet, that they are all about the same, makes me say, look, this digital monopoly run by the software, and you have no idea. This whole thing is software. This is all a part of the software I'm designing. And it is so massive that it's going to take the top 6 tech companies, top 5 tech companies in the world to collaborate to make it with me. Because this 24 trillion, we take half of it off for other. Let's go back to the book. Let's go to the. This is what it makes. Let's have a look at this. What's this? Universal healthcare, 397 billion between 2024 and 2080. Paid to learn, 758 billion between 2024 and 2080. Infrastructure, another 758 billion. Solar arrays, 379 billion. Internet, 379 billion. S-World Water, 379 billion. Football Leagues Initiative, paid to learn, 284 billion. And it all adds up to the figures we have just been looking at. Please also look at the special projects as I have presented them, which start on page 56. We have a quick look at the UN and SRC goals, and there we go. Each of those 64, on each one I've made a note of which have internalities and which have doing this thing creates these great things. And we continue. This is important. Growth theory versus climate change free. And I'm going to leave it here. We've seen the math. The math looks good. So whoever's listening to this, get in contact. Let's get this on the move. It's difficult getting people on board. Okay. Thanks.